Hello everyone. This is the first Cheetah 3D tutorial I have started. So, as you may have seen throughout all of my videos, you may have wondered what my animating engine is. Well, that is Cheetah 3D. You can get Cheetah 3D on its website. It's for $99, so it's not cheap, but it's not totally expensive either. It's not like Maya or Cinema 4D or anything. So it's relatively affordable, and I think it is one of the easiest 3D animating software to get the hang of. So today's lesson is basically going to be the basics. Your assets, what you are given. I have a blank document here. This is what the main setup looks like. You have all of your tools up here. You have your object browser down here with all of your objects. And I will get into more of the layout in maybe another video, maybe the next one. But today we're going to talk about assets. Now, what I consider an asset are these two right here, which you will be able to find if you look at the top here. Polygon and spline. This is what everything is built off of. So we're going to start out with the shapes right here. So these are our shapes, all the shapes that are in Cheetah 3D. And I'm going to go over a brief introduction for each of them. So first we have a ball or a sphere. There you go. You have your cube. You have a pill, a cone, a cylinder, a disc, which is a 2D shape. Now here's what's cool about the disc. What you can do with the disc is you can adjust over here how many corners it has. So it could be a triangle if you want. It could be an octagon, nonagon, decagon, whatever. This is the fractal. Fractal's a pretty fun shape to use. Basically a cube with a bunch of other little cube-shaped holes in it. In here you can adjust how many holes you want. Just as a warning, it will make your project lag a lot. You have your plane, which is also a 2D figure. You can tell it which axis you want it to be faced on, so that's kind of cool. Polyhedra. Polyhedra is another pretty fun shape to use. You can leave it like this when you're maybe doing a golf animation or something. If you really want to. There are a whole bunch of these different options here. So you can make it kind of a pyramid shape. And the list goes on. The stairs. The stairs is a lot more helpful than just getting a bunch of cubes and stacking them on top of each other. So for stairs, you can tell it how many steps you want. So that's pretty neat. You can adjust the height. You can adjust the depth. And you can also tell it to expand if you really want to. And let's say you maybe want it to be more of a spiral staircase and you don't want this big block in the way. You can always set it to slanting mode, like that. That's always useful. I usually put it in slanting mode. That's what I used for the Daredevil Stairway fight video. If you haven't seen that, go check that out. On my main channel, of course. This is the torus. So basically a big ring, floaty, lifesaver shape thing. You can control the radius. The radius of the tube, so how thick you want it to be. You want it to be super thin. Hula hoop. Whatever you please. You can also control kind of the roundness of the corners. So that's good for like picture frames. You can also change the shape in the other axis as well. So yeah. That's the torus. And the tube. The tube is, well, pretty self-explanatory. It's a tube. It's basically a cylinder, but it has a gaping hole in it. And you can, just like the torus, adjust its thickness. Whatever you want. Adjust the outer radius. All that. And I saved the best for last, which is the relief. The relief is for when you want a landscape. So as you can see there, that would be a landscape right there. What's really cool about it, you can turn it into, you can make it however high you wish. So you can make mountain range. So on my main channel, if you look at my Assassin's Creed video, you would see in the background there's a bunch of mountains. How did you get those mountains in there? Well, that's how. You can adjust noise. Sea level. So maybe it's in the ocean or something. Plateau level, so how flat you want your peaks to be. Or maybe you don't want your mountain range to just kind of slope down onto the ground. Maybe you want it to keep going. Well, that's what edge at sea level is for. So now you can make it like that. And you can maybe do something where you're copying and pasting something and just making it continual. That's completely fine. I tend to not do this very often, but if you like to do that, go right ahead. I suggest you play around in these settings and figure stuff out for yourself, because mountains are always a really cool thing to play with. Now, each shape is split up into sections, as you can see here. They are outlined by the orange perimeters. As you can see with the square, or with the box, it doesn't have sections. Well, you can change that. Up here in Properties, sections X, Y, and Z, you can give it as many amount of sections as you would imagine. Same thing with the ball. You can give it more sections if you want. You can give it more sections if you want. It's all up to you. Same thing with the capsule. Every shape in here, every shape in this collection can have as many sections as you want it to. So, what can you do with these sections? Well, you can go in. So, here's a nice little trick. If you want, let's say you want to edit these shapes. Well, that's what this little icon up here is for. Or if you really want to, you can go into your object browser. Here are all my shapes. Let's say I want to edit this ball. I would double click on either this or this, just the icon of the ball. So I can double click that, and this pentagon shape appears in place of the ball. I'll also do it here. Now, the orange lines go away. And when you hover your mouse over here, everything is highlighted in purple. That's because you went into polygon mode. And I'll show you how we got there. If you press object mode, this is where we were before. But now we have an entirely new mode, polygon mode. Polygon mode is where you can edit your shape. Let's say I select this area here. I can drag it out and make a spiky ball. All that. I can make it look however I want. Let's say I wanted to select multiple sections. There are a couple ways of doing this. You can click and drag and select multiple different shapes, or you can shift click. And that way you can drag all that out. Now what's this edge mode thing? Well, edge mode is basically the same thing as polygon mode, except instead of selecting the faces on each polygon, you're selecting the edges. I think that's pretty self-explanatory there. And then point mode is when you can select individual corners and manipulate things from there. So let's take a break from shapes for a bit and go to the other assets, the splines. The splines are 2D figures, as you can see. And you can fill them in with whatever you want. So let's start with the circle. So here's your circle. They're 2D shapes. This is the cog. Also, you may call it a gear. You can tell it how many teeth it has. The radius. So yeah, you can do whatever you want with these teeth. And of course you can tell it which plane to put it on. There's the flower, which is basically the cog but in a flower shape. The helix, which is a spiral shape. The line, which is basically, you know, it's a line. An edge, this is a shape, a 2D shape that you can shape any way you want. This is the rectangle. The star, you can change it to how many points you want. And text. Text can be pretty useful in several situations. If you go to your properties and click the arrow next to text, you can tell it whatever you want to say. So now I can tell it to say air snacks. You can change the font. And that's how you use the text. Now let's say you wanted to fill these shapes in. Let's say you wanted to edit these shapes. Well, you do the same thing that you do with the shapes. You double click their icon, either down here or up here, doesn't matter. So then you get access to their points and their sides. So from there you can manipulate your shape like so. Now let's say you wanted these shapes to have a face. Let's say you didn't want these shapes to have just an empty void where you can go through them. Well, sorry, I lost myself there. Well, you can do that. Basically what you do is you go up to this here that says Creator. And what this does is this gives a 3D shape to splines. So we're going to say polyplane. We're going to say polyplane. Let's say I wanted this circle to have a face. What I would do is I would take the circle, drag it into polyplane, and there's your circle, now with a face. So there's that. But what if you wanted to make these 3D? Like, what if you wanted them to have an actual third dimension and not continue to be just these 2D shapes? Well, I'm going to delete polyplane. We're going to go back into the Creator. And in this time, we're going to hit extrude. Now, let me go back to our circle friend. Now, if I drag circle under extrude, it gives the circle a 3D look to it. Now I'll do the same thing with the cog. So there you go. Flower. The flower. And because we need more time, text. So those are your basic assets in Cheetah 3D. This is what every creation is built off of. Everything starts with either a spline or a shape. And in future tutorials, I will be teaching how to go even deeper into making the creations you want.